The following presentation is a production of Ride the Wave Media.
It's the Best Birth Podcast, where we interview experts that elevate you as you prepare your heart and mind to have the best birth.
Each episode will interview professionals so you are prepared for pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. Our experts will build your confidence and empower you to trust your intuition throughout your pregnancy.
This audio is taken from videos on YouTube. Watch the entire episodes on YouTube at Birth Made Mindful. You're listening to the Best Birth Podcast. Our guest today is Julia Jeffrey, a doula and newborn care specialist.
Julia Jeffrey is a seasoned postpartum doula with 12 years of experience and also a bereavement doula of 10 years. She is a trained birth doula and has been a newborn care specialist for a decade. Having been an educator of new parents for 5 years, Julia has guided numerous families through the early stages of parenthood. Currently in her final semester of a BSN program to become a registered nurse, she owns the Baby Hive, a postpartum, newborn, and nanny agency. A dedicated mother of 4 and a wife of 30 years, Julia is also a passionate traveler, bringing a wealth of personal and professional experience to her work. Welcome, Julia.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, we want to know what brought you to newborn care. What was the drive there?
So what brought me to newborn care was I was introduced to the postpartum doula world by my business partner, Sarah Watkins, who I think you've interviewed. And she actually moved into our neighborhood, and I became fast friends with her. And at the time, she was a birth doula. And I said, oh, that sounds so amazing. I was just transitioning away from, I've been a medical assistant, kind of the medical field, into wanting something different after the loss of my fourth baby. So she said, you know what, I think you might want to try postpartum doula work. So I took the class, and I became a member of the Utah Doula Association, and got in with a really great group of doulas that mentored me. And I was so lucky that one of the first jobs that I got hired onto was with a group of these doulas. And this mom had hired multiple of us to just kind of help throughout the day. And in particular, when we met with her before she delivered, she said, oh, this is going to be so amazing. I'm excited to have all this help. But she kind of uttered under her breath, but I don't know what I'm going to do at night. And I happen to be a night owl. Like, I have insomnia, but that's a whole nother thing. But I said, well, I can do the nights. And that was it. That was all it took to really spark my passion for postpartum doula work, but especially sleep.
That's incredible to realize that we can have help both day and night. Yeah. We can ease our burdens and maybe even just take that pressure off of us mentally to know that there's around-the-clock care.
Around-the-clock care, yes. Yeah.
Tell us more about sleep. So in your work, are you helping the child sleep? Are you the sleep whisperer?
I feel like I have become the sleep whisperer, and it isn't just about sleep. Right? Like, nothing is just about the thing that we're talking about. It's about planning. It's about creating an environment. It's about, doing the things that get people ready for sleep. And in babies' cases, do they have the right amount of food? Are they getting enough sleep throughout the day? Are their needs being addressed? Right? So all those things play into good sleep.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the environment? What do you recommend to create a perfect sleep environment?
Perfect sleep environment it's not just darkness and white noise. It is really an entire process throughout the day. So during the day when the sun is up, we want to make sure that baby is seeing light and noise, and they see. Like, we want to create distinct differences between daytime and nighttime. And so we really work hard to kind of teach parents to create those environments. And at night, we coach parents to start shutting their house down, dimming lights, turning, music or TV or whatever off, around 7 p.m. just to start kind of like bringing the tempo down in the house. And then at night, we like darkness. I mean, really, it's because any kind of light except for red light, and we do use red light a lot. Any kind of light except red light stops melatonin production. Red light keeps melatonin production going. So we will tell parents, you can buy a red light bulb to screw into a lamp. You can buy a red light night light. Those sorts of things. And there's gadgets and things that have different color light spectrums that you can choose. So
making a difference between day and night, that's kind of a new concept. I remember hearing the advice, vacuum while your baby is taking a nap so they don't expect the house to always be quiet while they sleep.
Yeah. And I mean, the vacuum creates this white noise. And there's a difference between noise, loud screaming, kids playing, and kind of like a drone, kind of lawnmower, vacuum, whatever noise that helps with sleep. So.
Would you actually recommend that we allow our house to be loud then during the day so that they can sleep through noise?
My belief is to have your house do the things that it needs to do. So if you have older children, you don't want to be saying, shh, the baby's sleeping. Let them play, make other arrangements. Don't go around, of course, making industrious noise on purpose. But the general vibe of the household is, I really recommend that. I think that it's helpful because they had that in utero. They're not strangers to it.
We've talked about environment. What other things contribute to helping a baby sleep? I know that routines can often help.
Teens, for sure. Babies, and I'm not saying the schedule and that you can't go off that schedule, but definitely setting a routine. One of my favorites is the eat, play, sleep routine. And understanding your baby's windows, and sleep windows, activity windows, feeding windows can really make a difference because, well, first, let's start with what a normal, let's say you have a 6-week-old baby and you're trying to set a routine. I would say start with the same wake-up time every day, plus or minus 30 minutes. So let's say you want them to wake up at 7 o'clock every day. They can wake up as early as 6:30, as late as 7:30. So we kind of give them that leeway. And then we want to watch them. And if they start stirring at 6:45, then we go in and we wake them up and we start our day. And then you would probably change their diaper, get them dressed, get them awake enough that they can eat. So then you feed them. A 6-week-old will typically have about a 1 hour awake window, 1 hour to maybe an hour 15 at the longest. So if you got them up at 6:45, that means they're going to be going down close to 7:45 for a nap. So if a feed takes 20 to 30 minutes, and then burping, maybe changing another diaper in there, and then activity time. But we really want your activity time to be intentional. And at 6 weeks, we're working on head, shoulders, and neck strength, right? So babies develop from head down, feet last. So we're working on this core strength. So we're going to do tummy time. We're going to do kind of some back and forth rolling on the floor. And there's so many great tummy time videos out there. Your baby may not like it. I really recommend doing it the second you get home from the hospital or birth center or wherever you have baby. Babies don't have preferences, if that makes sense. They're kind of a blank slate. So whatever you do with them right out of the gate is the habits that they're going to form.
And you can do tummy time on your chest.
For sure, lay down, let them lift. I even do tummy time, I will hold babies upright a lot, as if you're going to burp them. If they're still very floppy and don't have a lot of structure, swaddle them because it will give them that strength around here to practice holding their head up. And you can feel them kind of do this stretch and bob their head around. It's so cool to see a baby working on that developmental milestone.
You spoke a little bit about wake windows
Yeah.
and when they should sleep during the days. this is going to change week over week, sometimes
for sure.
month over
Yes.
month. And so as a first-time mom, this is one of those things that you're kind of really confused by. You think, oh, shouldn't my baby just nap at 10 and 2? But there are subtle shifts that are happening. And luckily, in the age of online resources, there's lots of sample schedules that you can look at. But just as Julie was saying, you're looking for more of a rhythm, right? Not something where you say like, well, it is 7:05, so we are behind schedule. Yeah. It's more like you're looking at their cues and you're setting up these rhythms to help mom, to help baby, to help the whole family kind of get into the swing of things.
Yes. And babies have a rhythm, and it's up to us to kind of figure out what that rhythm is. And cues, I think it is still called the Dunstan baby language. Like, I watch that video every month to keep myself fresh. And babies really do have a language. It's quite amazing. And so then what it does for parents is it kind of takes away the reactiveness of parenting and gives you some proactive tools. So for instance, if let's say you're not understanding wake windows, but your baby is getting really fussy at 7:45. And I've seen moms go, okay, I gotta put him back on, I gotta give him some more food. No. Like, let's stop. Let's look at what they're doing. Are they rubbing their eyes? Are they staring? Are they long blinking? They're tired again. So then we set up the structures for sleep, right? Quiet down whatever area, swaddle, or if you baby wear, or you want to contact sleep, or whatever it is. You get set up for that, so then baby is in that environment now to sleep.
In that fourth trimester, the baby is going to be sleeping many more hours than they are awake.
16 to 18 hours a day in a 24-hour period. It's a lot. But that's when they're growing. Babies and children and babies, it is true, they only grow when they sleep. And that's their brain. So that baby, when they're sleeping, they're processing all that tummy time you did. They're processing the feeding session. That part of the brain is putting that and storing it into long term. And growing that brain. It's so cool.
I love the fact that development takes place during sleep, and recognizing how important it is for us to help our children sleep, to give them the time to sleep, to stay close to home so that they can sleep in those comfortable environments. If you have a fussy baby, you probably have a tired baby. So just like you said, like, don't try to go out and look for other solutions. Oh, maybe they need to be played with, or maybe they need to be held more. They're probably tired, and allowing them to sleep is going to give you a lot more sanity as well. I want to talk about the places that they should sleep. Because you did mention like contact napping, sleeping with the baby. Is it best to have the baby in a bassinet right at first? Is it best to have the baby in the parent's room?
AAP guidelines state that babies should be sleeping within an area of a parent, especially at night. During the day, I don't think it matters as much because the parent is awake and is attentive, but if the parent is also going to be asleep, it's best if baby is in the region. And that is for safety. That's for just getting baby on a kind of a pace because they follow the parent's own rhythms. So as far as where baby wants to sleep, I think is totally a personal preference. I'm not going to say there's one right way or another. If a family decides that they want a bed share, great, bed share. My only feeling or recommendation is that you make sure it's being done safely and know all of the safe things and what is not safe. Yeah.
We talked about wake windows a little bit and looking up sample schedules. What about these dreaded sleep regressions? I hear that word a lot. I feel like sometimes it might be overused, and then other times it is clear that your baby is in a sleep regression.
Sleep regression is like the name that, I don't know who gave it that, but actually it is not a regression. It is a progression. It is a sleep progression. Babies are progressing from infant sleep, where they're only doing 2 or 3 sleep cycles, where it's like light sleep, deep sleep and active sleep, right? Those 3 sleep cycles. When they go into a sleep progression, then what's happening is they're gaining an adult style cycle. So they're gaining 2 more sleep cycles than that. And they're much more subtle than light, deep, and active sleep. They're kind of in that in-between transition, and some babies just kind of struggle with those transitions. But if you can think of it, I'm really about positive. The more positive way you can think of something, the more I think excited you can get about, oh my gosh, my baby's developing into this new stage. How cool is that? Is it hard? Sure, of course. Of course it's hard. Just like learning any new skill can be hard at first. So, yeah.
One of the books that I love is called The Fringe Hours, and it talks about kind of utilizing this time when your baby is sleeping to reclaim a little bit of your own hobbies, or, maybe that's the time that you're getting some hours in of work if you're back to work. Do you have any recommendations on how we can use the time that our baby's sleeping to then dedicate to ourselves?
Yes, and that's really important, because if you're not taking care of yourself, if you are pouring everything you have into another person, and eventually you're not going to have anything left to pour into, right? So by giving back to yourself, you are also giving to the people around you, right? You can be present for when you need to be present. And if you love to read, take that time to read. If you are in school, take that time to learn something new. Or if you have a hobby, do that hobby, because that's going to feed your soul. And then once your soul is filled, you can give back to others.
And rest takes on so many different forms. For some of us, we need to rest, with our feet reclined and a drink in our hand. And for others, rest is more of a form of creativity.
Yeah.
Maybe it's communing with nature, but finding out what makes you feel rested, what makes you feel rejuvenated, and then spending that time to give yourself that full cup again.
When you are a first-time mom, you definitely can sleep when the baby sleeps. And I believe in that. Sleep when the baby sleeps. But also, that's the only time you're going to be able to sleep, when the baby sleeps. I also really put a lot of emphasis that daytime sleep is not the same as nighttime sleep for humans. Daytime sleep is kind of just a more alert level of sleeping, and you're not getting that deep, restful, regenerative sleep that you do at night. And so if you need to take a nap, of course take a nap. I mean, if you have the time and you can do it, do it. But I would really work hard for the parent's sleep, to come up with a plan for the night, so where the primary parent can get at least a 4-hour sleep stretch. That is the bare minimum for human existence, is a 4-hour sleep stretch at night. And so if you can give that to a primary parent, then that's such a gift.
One of the plans that I made in my own sleep schedule was to add the extra sleep shift, is what I called it. I found that taking a nap during the middle of the day, it would make me more groggy and fussy when I had to get up and then continue my day. But at the very start of our day, my son would wake up, it was early morning, and then when I put him back down for his first nap of the day, I would also go back to sleep. So it all seemed like I was being lazy, but I was actually planning in the sleep that felt a little bit more natural for my body.
Yeah.
Instead of just thinking, oh, I'll power through and then take a nap in the middle of the day. That didn't work for my body.
Yeah, I would say something similar for myself. When I had my last baby, my older 3 were in school, and because I'm a night owl, my days are shifted, and I like to sleep till 10 or 11 in the morning. And so I would get up at, 8, get my kids off to school, and then that would be the perfect nap time for my youngest. And he and I would climb back in bed together, and we would sleep till 10:30. Yeah.
I love that. Just doing what is intuitive and makes sense for your body. We can get caught up a lot of times in the research or in finding out what works for others, but it may not work for us. Are there some resources or places that you've found can help support new parents as they bring home a newborn?
I feel like I kind of live and breathe it.
You are the resource.
You are.
Your business is the resource.
There are all kinds of places out there that offer sleep tips. You can buy PDFs, you can buy sleep programs. And I don't support one or the other, for any of them. I think they're all great and they all teach good. And you can find the one that you feel like fits your lifestyle. Like, I'm not going to recommend one over another because some may not be as helpful as others. But they're definitely out there. Sleep consultants, usually you can Google sleep consultants and find those kinds of resources. I'm a researcher kind of by nature. I love evidence-based stuff. I use Google Scholar a ton. Google Scholar to find articles, peer-reviewed studies. If you're kind of nerdy like that, then I recommend going there but making sure that they're peer-reviewed. And another great resource that I have, it's not specific to babies, but a book that I love is called Why We Sleep by Matt Walker. Oh my gosh, he has a TED Talk out there that you can just watch and fall in love with him. He goes into the science of sleep, and it's so nerdy, but he makes it so easy to understand. I really love him.
Well, you had mentioned that sleep is kind of just one of the puzzle pieces for our newborn. I wanted to talk a little bit about just like basic infant care. My heart starts pounding when I think about them sending me home with my first baby, and both my husband and I feeling like we have no idea what to do with this baby, and are they going to be safe, and do we even know any of these rules? Can you walk us through a little bit, maybe with diapering stage of our infant?
Sure. Diapering I've learned so many tips about diapering. Now, if you ask me about cloth diapering, I'm not going to be a great resource because I've only done it a couple times with clients, and it's fine.
You're more of a disposables girl.
More of a disposable girl, and they're handy to have around.
Parents only had cloth diapers.
I know.
Is that right? My
They
mom
did
tells me
it.
that my sister and I were cloth diapered because that was the only
That's
thing
all they
out there.
had. Yeah.
Thank you to our diaper companies for making the options available for us.
Yes. Okay, I'm trying to, in my mind, where do I start with diapering? First, newborn baby, right? Squishy, still has their little umbilical cord stump on, right? Okay, so you're going to want to get diapers that have a little notch in them, but even sometimes that's not enough. But when you're putting the diaper on, a baby's first poops is kind of this sticky, tarry. It can be on the acidic side, and I would really recommend using some kind of a barrier cream, just a basic barrier ointment. Aquaphor is great, but I'm not promoting any products. There's a whole bunch out there. Just to protect their skin, because that's when they're going to get their first diaper rash, is from the first couple stools. So if you can get ahead of it and prevent before, rather than treat, you're going to be in a much better place. For boys, especially, making sure when you pull up that diaper, you're going to just want to take your index finger and just point the penis down. Otherwise, if the penis is doing whatever it wants, it will come up and they'll leak out over the top of it. Also, making sure with girls that you're wiping front to back, because we don't want to introduce any bacteria that's going on in the behind up into, the urinary tract. Boys, you can kind of wipe wherever, it's fine.
One more tip that I'll give for boys, I have 3 boys.
3 boys.
Jen has 3 boys.
I have 3 boys.
Is that the moment that you kind of take off their diaper and they feel the air again, they are probably going to urinate.
You wipe?
What I would do is I would expose them to the air just briefly by opening the diaper, and then I would use that same diaper. I would close it back up, and I would give them 30 seconds to a minute to have that last, pee That way I wasn't wasting yet another diaper by exposing them to air.
Yes. Boys or girls, they both do it. And you could even take a diaper wipe and you can wipe on the inside of their thigh. You can just wipe right above their pubic area just to kind of end the air and hope to trigger so you don't have a mess. Sometimes it happens, and especially with poop. I always put a clean diaper underneath before I ever open or expose the messy diaper. And then, I wipe down with that first diaper and tuck it under their bum. And sometimes they're not done pooping. And you have to kind of just sit there with maybe a little cloth over the boys and just wait for them to finish. Give them a little support, get those legs up, and wait for them to finish. But my other tip with diapering is I call it the ruffles. I don't know what else. Around the elastic where it goes around the leg holes, to make sure, just run your finger around, make sure that fringe is outward. That is going to protect from any leaks. If you have it tucked under, I guarantee that baby's going to leak and it's going to go through. Yeah.
If you're finding multiple leaks or blowouts, is that the time to move up to the next size?
Go up a diaper. And you could even, if you feel like they're in between sizes, you can go up a diaper at night, especially if they've stopped having bowel movements at night. Go up a diaper at night and it will hold just a little bit more, and you can maybe skip a diaper change. Yeah.
It seems kind of basic to talk about the trash can for diapering, but it's important, and there are some fancy trash cans out there. Have you found great success with those? Do you just prefer kind of the method of taking it out each time?
So it totally depends. I don't believe in a diaper station. Who wants to just go to that one place every time? I like to have little diaper, caddies kind of throughout the house where we live, and either, waterproof pads or whatever available. It really depends. If they're formula fed, I do believe in a diaper pail that seals off. But if they're breastfed, a garbage can. I mean, I've just had parents that have the step garbage cans, and they're great.
It won't be too stinky until they start eating table food.
Yeah. I was just going to add that it is also true that the best time they find to poop is in a clean diaper. It always seems inevitable. You've changed them and then you have another one right after that.
That's another great thing to find your baby's rhythm. It may take a couple days, but you will find some babies poop right at the beginning of a feed, some poop in the middle, and some poop 20 minutes after. Once you kind of can learn your baby's rhythm, then you can kind of plan and not be wasteful. Yeah.
Very true. What is another component of newborn care? We've talked about diapering and sleep. We have talked about feeding with lactation consultants, but are there any other tips you have with feeding and rhythms?
If you're going to use formula and you have breast milk, if you're going to do both, I really like mixing the two. I'll do half breast milk, half formula. And it just kind of helps that digestive system rather than breast milk one feed, formula another. That can be confusing to their little guts and GI system. I like mixing, so that's one thing with feeding if you're going to do that. Another thing with feeding, I love Hakas. Love them. I struggled with breastfeeding in particular. If you're finding yourself struggling, get some help. Don't wait. Get some help. Yeah, because there are experts out there that really can turn things around for you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's talk about the developmental milestones and just the excitement of each phase and stage.
Yay. Okay, so physically, babies develop head, neck, shoulders, center, legs, and then feet. So if we think about this developmentally, they should be holding their head up, being able to have neck control at 3 months. They should be rolling over one way or the other, front to back to front, around 6 months. 9 months, they should be able to fully sit up and start to crawl, start showing that kind of hands and knees. And then by 12 months, crawling, 14 months into standing and walking. So this is so they're moving head to toe. The other way babies develop is from the middle out. When you think of a newborn, they're very much pulled in. They don't have a lot of control with their hands. If they grab onto something, it's not intentional. But then as they get older, they just start developing more and more control. So if you see anything that is deviated from that, and work with your doctor to see. Reflexes too. I've seen lately this, I don't even know what you'd call it, a movement to not swaddle babies, that it will burn out their reflexes sooner. Let's say their startle reflex, right? Their moral reflex. If that disappears too much before 4 months, there's a neurological problem. If it lasts much past 4 months, there's a neurological problem. These reflexes, it's not something that you can just wear them out of, if that makes sense. And so I am a proponent of swaddling, as you can see, either physically, whether you do it or you use a blanket or whatever. Mentally, another component is their psychosocial development. I know we don't really think of like the social development of a newborn or an infant for the first year, but it is something that's very important. And I really love Erickson's theory of psychosocial development. And his birth to 1 year is trust versus mistrust. So your job as a parent is to establish trust with your baby. So how do you do this, right? All of these things we're talking about, listening to their cues, feeding them when they're hungry, giving them sleep when they're tired, all those things are developing trust and preparing them for the next stage, which is about 2 to 3 years of development, which is autonomy versus shame and doubt. So that's another conversation.
Even just smiling at your baby.
Interacting, yeah.
The amount of development that happens from 0 to 6 months would astound all of us. And yet we kind of think that, they're not really noticing if I'm just on my phone or if I'm not giving them that affirmation. They've reached out to me. I need to smile and look at them so that your baby recognizes that's my mom and she's smiling at me. She's looking at me. That can be so important for those first 6 months. And then the first year, second and third year, we're essentially forming our baby's brains. And by the time they're 5 years old, a lot of the brain development and the neural pathways have been established.
Yes, that is for real. And at 5 years old, that's when the brain starts kind of discarding the neural pathways that are not useful and strengthening the neural pathways that are useful. And so when we're talking about all of these things, what we're talking about is strengthening those neural pathways in your baby's brain.
And if you think about your own memories, I can't remember anything from the time I was 2 or 3. I maybe have some memories when I was 4, but a lot of this, you have to take it upon yourself as a parent to be responsible for this development and to care for them in a way that is deeper than just their physical needs.
It is deeper than physical, for sure.
With my first, we tried to avoid screen time until he was 3, and with each subsequent child, it became a little bit harder, but my next son, it was age 2. Screen time is such a hot topic and kind of just prevalent in our world because it's the world we live in. What would you have to speak to with screen time?
Oh my gosh, I feel like this is a little bit out of my element because there were no screens when I was raising my own babies, and when we're caring for babies, we are not on screens. It's just not happening. Developmentally, it is not great, right? You've seen those 18 months old be able to grab a phone and swipe through pictures. To me, that is crazy. I think technology is amazing and it is our future, but we also need to provide a reality for our children. And to be able to live in reality that is not virtual or on a flat screen is important developmentally. I mean, it just is. And to set limits for yourself, set rules, no screens at the table, no, whatever it is. For me, it was my kids didn't get a phone till they were 14, but that was easy because phones were just coming out. But as teenagers, once they get a screen, a phone or whatever, 14, 16-year-olds, I also believe in them learning, giving them guardrails, of course, setting up guardrails, but also understanding that they are learning how to control their world. And And you really have, that is something we were never in the thought of my mind did I think that this is what was going to be an issue, right? Of our time. Yeah.
And there's some talk about, well, if I don't give my child a screen, then they'll be behind. If they're not learning how to play these games or to navigate, they'll be behind. That's not true.
They figure it out. They figure that stuff out. And it is our world, right? You can't shelter them from it. It's the guardrails. It's setting up the guardrails so that whatever happens within your home and within your control, that's what happens. And then, then there's going to be negotiating and begging. And that's a whole nother show for children. And, but with babies, I really don't do screen time.
And when it comes to expectation management, as a parent, you often think, how am I going to survive this situation? So there's the situation of a parent and, their family going out to a restaurant. They're thinking, how am I going to keep my children quiet? I'll have to bring screens for each of them. If you start that and it becomes expectation, be prepared to continue walking down that road.
I say that with anything. Whatever you do with your baby. If you say, I want to rock my baby to sleep every night, great. I love that for you. But if you're going to do that, be prepared to do that for a long time. And that is the same with screens. So me and my husband, we really wanted our children to understand how to be social and how to socialize out in the world. We would eat out at a restaurant 2 times a week. So we would go, we would sit down, and there were 4 kids under the age of 8. And it was not easy. And did we get looks? Yes, we did. And have I had old ladies lecture me in Costco? Yes, I have. But they know how to behave themselves. We are raising people to be members of a society, right? We're not raising people to be separate from. Good.
There's a great time and a place for it. I think the moral of the conversation is to say that when you start creating habits and when you start creating the expectation that it always has to be available in order for self-regulation of a child to take place, that's when you get into a danger zone. So make sure as a parent that you are looking at all of your options. Can I bring a little coloring book? Can I bring one of those fidget spinners or some of the other toys? It might add a little bit more clutter to your diaper bag, but just recognizing that there's some different hands-on distraction methods that you can use other than a screen.
Especially with the first year, after 6 months especially. Food, explore the textures from 6 months to a year, 6 months to 18 months. This is the time that they're exploring textures, how things feel, how things sound. This is the best time to do that. And if you can use food as a distractor, as long as it's safe.
A little cup of ice kept my 1-year-old occupied for an entire 2-hour flight once.
Noodles on strings and, all those fine motor things too that they can work on. That's so
what
great.
They're developing.
Yes. Well, we love to end each episode with a Mom Squad secret. This one's from Alyssa. She says, if you are stressed that you are not in labor yet, try to relax. It will happen in due time. Enjoy a pedicure, a nice long walk, or a snack with a friend. I love this conversation about time and talking about the phases and stages. Just, be prepared that what you establish will continue, or just enjoy each phase, enjoy each stage, find something good in each one, and it'll come in time.
I agree.
Julia, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode. We hope you've been elevated and inspired by this week's expert.
Subscribe today so you never miss an episode. And please share our podcast or post on your social media so that other moms and dads-to-be can also have the best birth.
Please note that the information provided is based on the expert's insights and personal experience. It is not intended as medical guidance. Please seek the advice of your medical provider as it applies to your specific condition.